We choose the right format. We leak the information to the public. And we defend ourselves against inevitable legal and political attacks. Vicky Leaks. Leave me.
This sort of like, I had this ball of energy and they recognized it because that's what they had when, they wanted to do shit. And so they let me live in the house. And that was kind of cool, but after a while they got really annoyed. So, because I'd just be really annoying all the time and say, come on, wake up, do this, do that. And so they just used to go, basically I got access to a room which I shared with a cat. And they were just like, just go down there and do something. So that's kind of where I painted a lot of stuff. And it was just their way of keeping me occupied, so I didn't ignore them when they were enjoying the high. And I sort of started getting frustrated because, I'd had a lot to say, but didn't have the, platform. And so anyway, finally this thing happened where my art got embraced by London. It was in the newspapers. And, I took the paper home and I was like, I'm an artist, and everybody was like, yeah, cool, but we've decided to get off drugs, so we're all going to go to a deserted island. So that was like my worst nightmare that ever happened. And so right when this thing happened, where I'd embraced my future, they took me to a deserted island to look after them, and there was nothing there. There was no newspapers. There was just nothing. And I sort of cried all the time because I didn't read books, because that was the thing, refugees don't go to the beach and sunbathe and read books, we have to survive. And my brother was still in jail, my dad was still in Sri Lanka, my mum was still in the council flat, all this shit was still happening. And, I had to sort of babysit my friends who were coming off heroin so they didn't do it again. So that's what I was doing. Crying every day because every day I lost my link to the art world. And I couldn't, I felt like I had this 1 month window to make another show, but I didn't. But when I was there, I got really bored, and that's kind of when music happened to me. So when I got back, there was a lot of problems, I went through a lot of conflicting issues because, it was like a good 18 months time or something where I was a bit lost, and I couldn't carry on the music, carry on the art thing, and at the same time, I wasn't really a musician. So, all this stuff was stuff that I'd done before I went to the deserted island. So I was kind of going around the neighborhood and spraying up things, and I was making this stuff and people were buying it, and I was sort of, I was interacting with the world. And then, the music thing happened. So that's kind of how Arula has the strongest, in my mind, Arula has the strongest presence of the art thing because I've done it all before, and all I had to do is just bring it into the music world. wasn't in the gallery to begin with. It was in a shop. So it made me realise, because music is the thing that I connect to people through, and it's what I was, it's the language I knew. So I know how to talk to 14-year-olds from, a hood in the Bronx or whatever, and a 15-year-old on a deserted island, who that's how I eventually sort of got inspired by music, because I was listening to it every day, because I'd get so bored I'd start hanging out with locals, and then I was just out dancing every night, and that's kind of how it happened. And so it was really interesting, because it opened up a whole new thing for me, because I was like, oh, I could get my artwork through the music to people without having to put it in the gallery, because how are you going to get the kids that you were hanging out with on the island to go to a gallery? It's just not possible. That concept didn't exist, Even in London, for me, I was really strange as a child with walking into a gallery. At 15, me and my sister used to get one-day travel cards, jump on a train and explore London, and bunk school, and we accidentally walked into, I think it was like the Victoria and Albert, by mistake, and we were like, what is this, and we just discovered it by accident, and it wasn't that we were taught art, and that it wasn't that we understood conceptual art, and we just thought it was a cool building. We walked in, and then we were inspired by it. I don't know how, but we were. And so, but I knew that I was different, because I was the only person at St. Martin's who was like me. And so it was really interesting to take all the education I'd got from that point, up to that point, from the art world, feed it through music, and bring it to kids in the hood through music, and make them look at it without knowing that they're looking at it, and take it seriously. Up to that point, in the early 2000s, the computers were just sort of coming into existence on a mainstream level, but it was still quite an elite thing, like you had to be rich to have one. And I think stenciling was kind of like the poor man's Photoshop. You cut and paste and repeat shit, and it was really, I think it's a poor man's Photoshop. So that's kind of how my aesthetic started. It was just repetition, and the repetition thing happened when I was doing videos and looping things, and it's just repeat, keep telling your story and just repeat it all the time. And aesthetically, luckily, through this shop that I worked at, Euphoria, they believed in that aesthetic also, so we were able to make prints and images using repetitive printing. So we had clothes that looked like the paintings, and then the artwork that looked like this, and then that, so we were able to sort of connect the things together. But when I came to America and brought the stuff to America, because in England they sort of, I was signed to an indie label, XL. They didn't really give a shit about what I was putting through as images. But when I came to America, the idea is if you make it, then you get slicker. So people were just like, yeah, whatever, we've got the art department guy that's just going to clean it up for you. And that took a lot of energy. So in the beginning I was just in, constant battle, saying, well, why would you cut up, you know, say for example, I was spraying ombre stencils on my floor in my apartment, like for example this thing, or the palm trees. You know, if you're spraying this sort of thing as it is what it is, like that is what it is, why would you cut that up and reassemble it differently to put it on in a magazine, or to put it on a poster, or to put it on a flyer? So if they're going to promote my live show, they will take this image, then they will cut it up and then change the colours, and then they will add this different shit on it and then put it back out. And I didn't understand why there was a middleman, you know, and so I spend all my time fighting over that. But the music industry never had a musician who did that before. So, and I didn't know, I mean, I didn't understand that, so it was just like this weird, fucked up situation, because